Today you're going to start using Geometer Sketchpad to create the net for your redesigned Capri Sun package. Before we begin, please look at the tools on the left-hand side. Your first tool is the arrow tool or the selector tool. Next is your point tool, circle tool, line segment tool, shape tool, and text tool. Today, for example, we are going to create a net of a cylinder. To do this, I'm first going to select my circle. I'm now going to click and drag a circle. If I continue to use my cursor now, all I would do is continue to draw circles. But instead I need to now click on the arrow, which is my selector tool. I just want to work with this larger circle. So I want to get rid of all these other little mini circles. Notice that this small one here is red highlighted. It's got the red lines around it. I can either keep it highlighted and then press delete to get rid of it and do an individual selection of each of the items. Or I can click and drag over everything and notice everything gets highlighted. Press delete and it removes it. Now that I'm in the selector tool, I can now click and drag this circle over here to the center of my screen. When I click out in the white space, notice the selection comes off of my green edged circle. What I want to do now is to determine the circumference of this circle. Determining the circumference of my circle will help me figure out what the length of the longest side of my rectangular part of my net should be. So I'm going to click once on this, and now I need to calculate the circumference of the circle. Geometer Sketchpad can help you easily do this. I'm now going to go up to measure, and notice that some of these words are actually bolded. Many of them are grayed out. The ones that are bolded are the ones that apply to the circle. I'm going to click circumference. Now Geometer Sketchpad has calculated the circumference of my given circle. Currently it's at 9.88 centimeters. I'm going to click outside of it. And I want you to notice what happens when I click on this circle H, and we see what happens to the circumference as I click and drag it in. It will change the circumference automatically as I click and drag it in, making it smaller or bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and make my circumference. And let's make it we'll take it to 7.29 centimeters. Now, knowing what I know about geometry, I'm now going to create the other part of my net, which would be the rectangular portion. To do this, I'm going to use my line segment tool. I've selected it, and now I'm going to draw the shorter side of my rectangle. One little shortcut: if you hold down Shift, it straightens out the line. So now I notice that this side is my shorter side and it's selected. When I want to go and draw my longer side, if I put my arrow on top of that dot, it now makes the longer side. Again, pressing Shift. And now, again, I can go to my arrow or my dot. When it gets bigger, I can make it another selection. Again, gets bigger and connect the two sides. So there's my rectangular portion. Now, I'm going to choose back again on my selector tool. What I need to make sure now is that the circumference equals the longest side of my rectangle, that they are the same length. So now we have to measure each side of our rectangle. In order to do this, I need to select each side individually, and then I need to measure the length. To do this, click once and notice the red outline. Go to measure, and you're going to notice different things are highlighted and grayed out. Length, first thing, click on it, and now it's identified the points IJ, and it has measured this at 2.06 centimeters. I'm going to work my way around the rectangle. I'm going to click in the white space, getting rid of the purple box around the measurement. Click on my next long side, go to measure, length, and it's at 7.46, so very close to our circumference. Click in the white space, measure the next short side. Now our two sides should be of equal sides, so we will work on that one in just a second. And our last long side, click to select, measure, and length. Now Geometer Sketchpad has indicated the lengths of each of the sides. A couple things here we need to do. We need to make sure that the length of our longest side is the exact same as our circumference, which is 7.29. So I'm going to take point K, and you can start to drag it to the necessary measurement. So I'm going to take it around and get it to 7.29. it can be very difficult sometimes to get to 7.29. Bingo. So now I need to do the same with the opposite side. So you notice up here this is 7.29. The parallel side to it is side JL. So I'm going to move JL to 7.29 also. And again, being careful about where it is, and we can correct the other sides as necessary. You want your opposite sides, the parallel sides, should always be the same size. And notice by simply clicking and dragging, I now have both sides at 7.29. Now we need to look at our shorter sides. IJ is 2.06 and the other one is at 2.12. So we're going to make this 2.12 also. And again, you're going to have to play around with it. Okay. So if you look at it, now I've manipulated the long one. And IJ now is a little long. So again, just by moving them around. So now I have opposite sides are same length and longest side is equal to the circumference of my circle. So I'm going to take my circle and lay it on top of my net. And now I have most of my net. The piece I'm now missing is the bottom circle. We don't want to create a new circle. Instead, we will copy paste it. So I'm going to select, go to Edit, Copy, click in the white background, Edit, Paste. Now I have the bottom portion of my net. You now have your completed net. You could determine the circumference of MN if you want, however you do know that they should be equal. Now comes the calculation part of the project. You need to figure out the surface area and the volume of this net. First, we can figure out the area of the circle. To do that, click on one circle. This is circle GH. We're going to go back to measure, and notice one of them, the features, is area. When I click on area, it tells me the area of that circle. I've moved it over to the right now that we're doing some calculations. Next, I'm going to figure out the area of circle MN, which should be the same as the one before it. Click on measure and area, and notice they're equal. Next, I need to determine the area of the rectangle. This can be done a little bit differently. We know that the area of the rectangle is length times width. So, to do this, I am going to go up to number, because if you look up here, if I calculate, I choose two sides, go to measure, area is not an option for my rectangle. So we're going to do this a different way. Instead, I'm going to go to number, and I'm going to go to calculate, and it pulls up the Geometer Sketchpad calculator. I am going to measure because I already know that the area of a rectangle is length times width, so I'm going to click on one side. Or sorry, we're going to click over here in the calculation. So I know that the shorter side, IJ, right here, I'm going to click it. And notice in my calculator, it says measurement IJ. And I now need to multiply it, click in the asterisk, by the longest side, which one of them is IK. So I'm going to click IK, and it inserts it there. So right now my calculation is measurement of IJ times measurement of IK. If I press OK, it then calculates the area of my rectangle. Now I wish that it said area of rectangle, so I'm going to move this over slightly. I'm going to click on my text tool, click and drag a box for it, and type in area of rectangle. There, that way I know, click on my selector tool to move it, what that calculation is. Now I've got the area of each of the objects within my net. Now I need to determine the surface area. And you know that the surface area are all those areas added together, the area of your circles, top and bottom, and the area of the rectangle. So to do this, again, there's nothing in the measure So we're going to go back to our calculate. I need to take the area of each of my circles and the area of my rectangle and add them together. So I'm going to click on the first area of the circle, click on the plus sign, add the area of the second circle, click on the plus sign, area of the rectangle, and press OK. And you have your total surface area of your net. Again, I'll move it over some. I want to add a text box and indicate that this is the surface area of the net. Again, click on your selector tool and move it over. So now you have the surface area of your net. The last thing you need to figure out is the volume of your net. Again, when you go to measure, it's not listed as one of its tools. So again, we're going to use that number, calculate. If we can keep in mind what the volume of a cylinder is, it is pi r squared times height. To do that, we also need to figure out the radius of our circle, and we do not have that anywhere indicated here. So I'm going to cancel out, and I want to select one of our circles. When you select that circle, notice you can go to measure, and one option is radius. So I'm going to click radius, move that over to my data side of, and now I know that my radius is 1.16 centimeters. Now I have enough information to go ahead and figure out the volume. When I go again to number and calculate, we're going to do the volume. I know it's pi r squared. I have my radius, I know what pi is, and I now need to figure out the height. Well, the height is the shorter side, or KL, or IJ, the length of that. So we have all that information listed on our screen. When we're in our calculation, if you click on the value drop-down menu, you now can see that there's a pi option. So I'm going to click on pi. And now we need to multiply, or asterisk, r squared. Now, if you look at functions, there are some things that are going on down here. But instead of using any of those functions, we're going to just do the radius times the radius. Instead of squaring it, we'll just multiply it by itself twice. So I'm going to multiply by clicking 1.16 of the radius. So now I have pi times, click on radius, radius, asterisk, click on radius again. So that's the square part, times the height. The height, again, is either line segment IJ or KL. I'm going to do IJ and press OK. You now have the volume of your cylinder. Again, there's no text involved. I'll click on the text, click and drag, volume of the net. Click on your selector tool to move it closer to. So now you have the net of your newly redesigned Capri Sun, all the data associated with it, and the formulas necessary for it. When you save it, please make sure to save it to your server folder or other destination that all group members can actually access.